Please make sure to subscribe our channel and press the bell icon to get notified about the future videos. You may pause the video at times to read the questions or the answers at your own pace. To the questions. Question 1. You have a Microsoft 365 E5 tenant that uses a domain named contoso.com. A user named user1 sends link-based branded emails that are encrypted by using Microsoft Office 365 Advanced Message Encryption to the recipients shown in the following table. For which recipients can user1 revoke the emails? Our options are A. Recipient 4 only, B. Recipient 1 only, C. Recipient 1, Recipient 2, Recipient 3 and Recipient 4, D. Recipient 3 and Recipient 4 only, or E. Recipient 1 and Recipient 2 only. The correct option is A. Recipient 4 only. The correct answer is A. You cannot revoke a mail that you send to a recipient that uses a work or school account from Office 365 or a Microsoft 365 or a user that uses a Microsoft account, for example, an Outlook.com account. Question 2. You have a Microsoft 365 tenant that uses a Microsoft Office 365 message encryption. You need to ensure that any emails containing attachments and sent to square brackets email protected are encrypted automatically by using OME. What should you do? Our options are A. From the Exchange Admin Center, create a new sharing policy. B. From the Microsoft 365 Security Center, create a Save Attachments policy. C. From the Exchange Admin Center, create a mail flow rule. Or D. From the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, configure an auto-apply retention label policy. The correct option is C. From the Exchange Admin Center, create a mail flow rule. You can create mail flow rules to help protect email messages you send and receive. You can set up rules to encrypt any outgoing email messages and remove encryption from encrypted messages coming from inside your organization or from replies to encrypted messages sent from your organization. Question 3. Hotspot. You have a Microsoft 365 tenant named contoso.com that contains two users named user1 and user2. The tenant uses Microsoft Office 365 message encryption. User1 plans to send emails that contain attachments as shown in the following table. User2 plans to send emails that contain attachments as shown in the following table. For which emails will the attachments be protected? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, user1. Our options are mail 1 only, mail 3 only, mail 1 and mail 2 only, mail 2 and mail 3 only, mail 1, mail 2 and mail 3. The correct option is mail 3 only. To the next statement, user 2. Our options are mail 5 only, mail 6 only, mail 4 and mail 5 only, mail 4 and mail 6 only, mail 4, mail 5 and mail 6. The correct option is mail 4 and mail 6 only. Question 4. Hotspot. You plan to create a custom sensitive information type that will use exact data match. You need to identify what to upload to Microsoft 365 and which tool to use for the upload. What should you identify? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, upload. Our options are data hashes, data in the XML format, digitally signed data. The correct options are data hashes. To the next statement, use. Our options are Azure Storage Explorer, EDM Upload Agent, the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, or the set-keyword dictionary CMDLET. The correct option is EDM Upload Agent. Correct answers are data hashes and EDM Upload Agent. Steps: first, set up EDM based classification. Secondly, hash and upload the sensitive data. Then use EDM-based classification with your Microsoft Cloud Services. To hash and upload the sensitive information source table, firstly, set up a custom security group and user account. Then set up the EDM upload agent tool. And then lastly, use the EDM upload agent tool to hash with a salt value the sensitive information source table and upload it. Question 5. Your company has a Microsoft 365 tenant that uses a domain named contoso.com. The company uses Microsoft Office 365 message encryption to encrypt email sent to users in fabricam.com. A user named user1 erroneously sends an email to email protected. You need to prevent email protected from accessing the email. What should you do? The correct option is B. Run the set-ome message revocation cmdlet. B would be correct. It is asking to prevent user from accessing the email. The correct steps are: get the message ID of the email, verify that you can revoke the message, revoke the mail. Question 6. You have a Microsoft 365 tenant. You discover that email does not use Microsoft Office 365 message encryption. You need to ensure that OME can be applied to email. What should you do first? Our options are: A. Enable Microsoft Defender for Office 365. B. Activate Azure Information Protection. C. Activate Azure Rights Management. Or D. Create an Azure Key Vault. The correct option is C. Activate Azure Rights Management. The only prerequisite for using the new OME capabilities is that Azure Rights Management must be activated in your organization's tenant. If it is, Microsoft 365 activates the new OME capabilities automatically and you don't need to do anything. Question 7. You have a sensitive information type based on a trainable classifier. You are unsatisfied with the result of trainable classifier. You need to retrain the classifier. What should you use in the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center? Our options are: A. Labels from Information Protection. B. Labels from Information Governance. C. Content Explorer from Data Classification. Or D. Content Search. The correct option is C. Content Explorer from Data Classification. How to retrain a classifier in Content Explorer? Firstly, sign into Microsoft 365 Compliance Center with Compliance Admin or Security Admin role access and open Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, then Data Classification, then Content Explorer. Under the Filter on Labels, Info Types or Categories list, expand Trainable Classifier. Question 8. You receive an email that contains a list of words that will be used for a sensitive information type. You need to create a file that can be used as the source of a keyword dictionary. In which format should you save the list? Our options are: A. A JSON file that has an element for each word. B. An ACCDB database file that contains a table named dictionary. C. An XLSX file that contains one word in each cell of the first row. Or D. A text file that has one word on each line. The correct option is D. A text file that has one word on each line. Keyword dictionaries can be created either from a text file or from CSV file. Note, there are several versions of this question in the exam. The question has two possible correct answers. First is a CSV file that contains word separated by commas. Second is a text file that has one word on each line. Question 9. You have a Microsoft 365 tenant that uses the following sensitivity labels: confidential, column, internal, and external. The labels are published by using a label policy named Policy 1. Users report that Microsoft Office for the web apps do not display the sensitivity button. The sensitivity button appears in Microsoft 365 apps that are installed locally. You need to ensure that the users can apply sensitivity labels to content when they use Office for the web apps. What should you do? Our options are: A. Modify the scope of confidential label. B. Modify the publishing settings of Policy 1. C. enable sensitivity labels support for Office files in Microsoft SharePoint Online and OneDrive, or D. Run the execute-azure AD label sync cmdlet. The correct option is C. Enable sensitivity label support for Office files in Microsoft SharePoint Online and OneDrive. Enable built-in labeling for supported Office files in SharePoint and OneDrive so that users can apply your sensitivity labels in Office for the web. Question 10. You have a Microsoft 365 E5 tenant. You need to add a new keyword dictionary. What should you create? Our options are A. A trainable classifier, B. A sensitivity label, C. A sensitive info type, or D. A retention policy. The correct option is C. A sensitive info type. The correct steps to this are: connect to the Microsoft Purview Compliance portal, navigate to classifications, then sensitive info types, select create and enter a name and description for your sensitive info type, then select next. Question 11. You have a Microsoft 365 tenant that uses 100 data loss prevention policies. A Microsoft Exchange administrator frequently investigates email that were blocked due to DLP policy violations. You need to recommend which DLP report the Exchange administrator can use to identify how many messages were blocked based on each DLP policy. Which report should you recommend? Our options are A. Third-party DLP policy matches, B. DLP policy matches, C. DLP incidents, or D. False positives and override. The correct option is B. DLP policy matches. Question 12. You need to be alerted when users share sensitive documents from Microsoft OneDrive to any users outside your company. What should you do? Our options are A. From the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, create a data loss prevention policy. B. From the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, start a data investigation. C. From the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, create an insider risk policy. Or D. From the Cloud App Security Portal, create an activity policy. The correct option is A. From the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, create a data loss prevention policy. With a DLP policy, you can identify, monitor, and automatically protect sensitive items. Note, there are several versions of this question in the exam. The question has two possible correct answers. First is from the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, create a data loss prevention policy. The second is from the Cloud App Security Portal, create a file policy. Question 13. Hotspot. You use project codes that have a format of 3 alphabetical characters that represent the project type, followed by 3 digits. For example, ABC123. You need to create a new sensitive info type for the project codes. How should you configure the regular expression to detect the content? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. To the answer area, this is our expression. To the first blank, these are our options. Among these, the correct option is square bracket A dash Z capital A dash Z square bracket of curly brackets 3. To the next blank, these are our options. The correct option is D curly brackets 3. Question 14. Hotspot. You need to implement an information compliance policy to meet the following requirements. Documents that contain passport numbers from the United States, Germany, Australia, and Japan must be identified automatically. When a user attempts to send an email or an attachment that contains a passport number, the user must receive a tooltip in Microsoft Outlook. Users must be blocked from using Microsoft SharePoint Online or OneDrive for Business to share a document that contains a passport number. What is the minimum number of sensitivity labels and auto-labeling policies you should create? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, sensitivity labels. Our options are 1, 2, 3, 4. The correct option is 1. To the next statement, auto-labeling policies. Our options are 1, 2, 3, 4. The correct option is 1. We have 4 different kinds of built-in sensitive information types for United States, Germany, Australia and Japan in data classification. One auto-labeling policy can include all 4 passport-sensitive information types in rule conditions. In the same policy, you choose one sensitivity label to add to files. Question 15. Hotspot. You are implementing Microsoft Office 365 message encryption for a Microsoft 365 tenant named contoso.com. You need to meet the following requirements. All email to a domain named fabricam.com must be encrypted automatically. Encrypted emails must expire 7 days after they are sent. What should you configure for each requirement? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, all email to a domain named fabricam.com must be encrypted automatically. Our options are a data connector in Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, a data loss prevention policy in Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, a mail flow connector in the Exchange Admin Center, or a mail flow rule in the Exchange Admin Center. The correct option is a mail flow rule in the Exchange Admin Center. To the next statement, encrypted emails must expire 7 days after they are sent. Our options are a custom branding template in the Microsoft Exchange Online PowerShell, a label policy in the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, a mail flow rule in the Exchange Admin Center, a sensitive info type in the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center. The correct option is a custom branding template in Microsoft Exchange Online PowerShell. Question 16. Drag drop. You have a Microsoft 365 tenant that uses data loss prevention. You have a custom employee information form named template1.docs. You need to create a classification rule package based on the document fingerprint of template1.docs. Which 3 actions should you perform in sequence? To answer, move the appropriate actions from the list of actions to the answer area and arrange them in the correct order. The actions provided to us are run the set-dlp sensitive information type cmdelete, create a variable that contains the result of the new-dlp fingerprint cmdelete, run the new-dlp sensitive information type cmdelete, create a variable that contains the result of the get-content cmdelete, and create a variable that contains the result of the get-content filter phrase cmdelete. The correct options in the right order are create a variable that contains the result of the get-content cmdelete, create a variable that contains the result of the new-dlp fingerprint cmdelete, run the new DLP sensitive information type cmdelete. Question 17. Hotspot. You plan to implement a sensitive information type based on a trainable classifier. The sensitive information type will identify employment contracts. You need to copy the required files to Microsoft SharePoint Online folders to train the classifier. What should you use to seed content and test the classifier? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, seed content. Our options are only files that are poor examples of employment contracts, only files that are good examples of employment contracts, files that are a mix of good and poor examples of employment contracts, a file that contains the metadata of the employment contracts in the CSV format, a file that contains the metadata of the employment contracts in the JSON format. The correct option is only files that are good examples of employment contracts. To the next statement, testing the classifier. Our options are only files that are poor examples of employment contracts, only files that are good examples of employment contracts, files that are a mix of good and poor examples of employment contracts, a file that contains the metadata of the employment contracts in the CSV format, a file that contains the metadata of the employment contracts in the JSON format. The correct options are files that are a mix of good and poor examples of employment contracts. Question 18. You need to provide a user with the ability to view data loss prevention alerts in the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center. The solution must use the principle of least privilege. Which role should you assign to the user? Our options are A. Compliance Data Administrator, B. Security Operator, C. Compliance Administrator, or D. Security Reader. The correct option is D. Security Reader. Question 19. Drag drop. We need to create a trainable classifier that can be used as a condition in an auto-apply retention label policy. Which 3 actions should you perform in sequence? To answer, move the appropriate actions from the list of actions to the answer area and arrange them in the correct order. The actions provided to us are: retrain the trainable classifier, create a terms of use policy, create the trainable classifier, test the trainable classifier, publish the trainable classifier. The correct options in the right order are: create the trainable classifier, test the trainable classifier, publish the trainable classifier. Question 20. You have a Microsoft 365 tenant. You create the following: a sensitivity label and an auto labeling policy. You need to ensure that the sensitivity label is applied to all the data discovered by auto labeling policy. What should you do first? Our options are: A. Enable insider risk management, B. Create a trainable classifier, C. Run the enable-transport rule cmdlet, or D. Run the policy in simulation mode. The correct option is D. Run the policy in simulation mode. You can't automatically label documents and emails until your policy has run at least one simulation. Question 21. You have a Microsoft 365 E5 tenant that contains a Microsoft SharePoint Online site named Site1 and a user named User1. The tenant has auditing enabled. You need to ensure that User1 can perform disposition reviews. The solution must use the principle of least privilege. What should you do? Our options are: assign User1 to the Compliance Data Administrator role, B. Add User1 to the Records Management role group, C. Assign User1 to the Data Investigator role, or D. Add User1 to the Content Explorer Content Viewer role group. The correct option is B. Add User1 to the Records Management role group. To be able to perform disposition reviews, you need to be part of the Records Management role group or Disposition Management role. Question 22. You create 3 sensitivity labels named Sensitivity 1, Sensitivity 2, and Sensitivity 3 and perform the following actions. Publish Sensitivity 1. Create an auto-labeling policy for Sensitivity 2. You plan to create a file policy named Policy 1 in Microsoft Cloud App Security. Which sensitivity labels can you apply to Microsoft SharePoint Online in Policy 1? Our options are: A. Sensitivity 1 only, B. Sensitivity 1, Sensitivity 2, and Sensitivity 3, C. Sensitivity 2 only, or D. Sensitivity 1 and Sensitivity 2 only. The correct option is A. Sensitivity 1 only. For Defender for Cloud Apps to apply sensitivity labels, they must be published as part of a sensitivity label policy in the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center. Question 23. You have a Microsoft OneDrive for Business folder that contains the files shown in the following table. In Microsoft Cloud App Security, you create a file policy to automatically apply a classification. What is the effect of applying the policy? Our options are: A. The policy will apply to only the .docx and .txt files. The policy will classify the files within 24 hours. B. The policy will apply to all the files. The policy will classify only 100 files daily. C. The policy will apply to only the .docx files. The policy will classify only 100 files daily. Or D. The policy will apply to only the .docx files and .txt files. The policy will classify the files immediately. The correct option among all these is C. Question 24. Hotspot. You have a Microsoft SharePoint online site named Site1 and a sensitivity label named Sensitivity1. Sensitivity1 adds a watermark and a header to a content. You create a policy to automatically apply Sensitivity1 to emails in Microsoft Exchange Online and Site1. How will Sensitivity1 mark matching emails and Site1 documents? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, Exchange Online emails. Our options are a header only, a watermark only, a watermark and a header. The correct option is a header only. To the next statement, Site1 documents. Our options are a header only, a watermark only, a watermark and a header. The correct option is a watermark and a header. Question 25. You are implementing a data classification solution. The research department at your company requires that documents containing programming code be labeled as confidential. The department provides samples of the code from its document library. The solution must minimize administrative effort. What should you do? Our options are A. Create a custom classifier. B. Create a sensitive info type that uses exact data match. C. Use the source code classifier. Or D. Create a sensitive info type that uses a regular expression. The correct option is C. Use the source code classifier. Resumes, source code, harassment, profanity, threat are pre-trained classifiers that exist already in Microsoft 365. Source code is correct. Question 26. You have a new Microsoft 365 tenant. You need to ensure that custom trainable classifiers can be created in the tenant. To which role should you be assigned to perform the configuration? Our options are A. Security Administrator, B. Security Operator, C. Global Administrator, or D. Compliance Administrator. The correct option is C. Global Administrator. The global admin needs to be opt-in for the tenant to create custom classifiers. Compliance Administrator role is required to train a classifier. Question 27. You need to automatically apply a sensitivity label to documents that contain information about your company's network, including computer names, IP addresses, and configuration information. Which two objects should you use? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. The correct options are B and F, that is a custom trainable classifier, and a sensitivity label that has auto-labeling. It is true that auto-labeling policy does not support trainable classifier, so the answer would be B and F. Question 28. You are creating a custom trainable classifier to identify organizational product codes referenced in Microsoft 365 content. You identify 300 files to use as seed content. Where should you store the seed content? Our options are A. A Microsoft SharePoint online folder, B. A Microsoft OneDrive for business folder, C. An Azure file share, or D. Microsoft Exchange online shared mailbox. The correct option is A. A Microsoft SharePoint online folder. Question 29. Each product group at your company must show a distinct product logo in encrypted emails instead of the standard Microsoft Office 365 logo. What should you do to create the branding templates? Our options are A. Create a transport rule, B. Create an RMS template, C. Run the set-IRM configuration cmdlet, or D. Run the new-OME configuration cmdlet. The correct option is D. Run the new-OME configuration cmdlet. D is correct. You use new-OME configuration to create the branding template. A transport rule is needed to apply it, but not to create it. Question 30. You have a Microsoft 365 tenant that uses Microsoft Teams. You need to ensure that all internal communication is stored for a minimum of 7 years. What should you create first? Our options are A. A retention label, B. A Microsoft SharePoint online site, C. A Microsoft Exchange online shared mailbox, or D. A retention label policy. The correct option is D. a retention label policy. They are saying that all communication should be saved, which would be a policy, not anything regarding documents, which then would be OneDrive or SharePoint based. Question 31. You create a custom sensitive info type that uses exact data match. You plan to periodically update and upload the data used for EDM. What is the maximum frequency with which the data can be uploaded? Our options are A. Twice per week, B. Twice per day, C. Once every 6 hours, D. Once every 48 hours, or E. Twice per hour. The correct option is B. Twice per day. You can upload data with the EDM upload agent to any given data store only twice per day. Question 32. You need to test Microsoft Office 365 message encryption capabilities for your company. The test must verify the following information: the acquired default template names, the encryption and decryption verification status. Which PowerShell CMDlet should you run? Our options are A. Test-client access rule, B. Test-mailflow, C. Test-OAuth connectivity, or D. Test-IRM configuration. The correct option is D. Test-IRM configuration. Question 33. You plan to implement sensitivity labels for Microsoft Teams. You need to ensure that you can view and apply sensitivity labels to new Microsoft Teams sites. What should you do first? Our options are A. Run the set-SPO site CMDlet, B. Create a new sensitivity label scoped to groups and sites, C. Run the execute-Azure AD label sync CMDlet, or D. Configure the enable MIP labels Azure Active Directory setting. The correct option is D. Configure the enable MIP labels Azure Active Directory setting. Question 34. You plan to implement Microsoft Office 365 Advanced Message Encryption. You need to ensure that encrypted email sent to external recipients expires after 7 days. What should you create first? Our options are A. A custom branding template, B. A remote domain in Microsoft Exchange, C. A mailflow rule, D. A X.509 version 3 certificate, or E. A connector in Microsoft Exchange. The correct option is A. A custom branding template. Question 35. You need to be alerted when users share sensitive documents from Microsoft OneDrive to any users outside your company. What should you do? Our options are A. From the Microsoft Purview Compliance Portal, start a data investigation. B. From the Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps portal, create a file policy. C. From the Azure Active Directory Admin Center, configure an identity protection policy. Or D. From the Exchange Admin Center, create a data loss prevention policy. The correct option is B. From the Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps portal, create a file policy. This question is asking for a function that will detect when users share sensitive information outside your company, which means we need to create a DLP policy. The only logical answer here for creating a DLP policy is Cloud Apps file policy, since we have a DLP category available here. Question 36. You have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription that uses Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. You need to ensure that you receive an alert when a user uploads a document to a third-party cloud storage service. What should you use? Our options are A. An insider risk policy, B. A file policy, C. A sensitivity label, or D. An activity policy. The correct option is B. A file policy. It is to be noted that the questions from 37 to 40 are a part of a series of multiple questions that present the same scenarios. Each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some question sets might have more than one correct answer, while others might not have a correct answer. After you answer a question in this section, you will not be able to return to it. As a result, these questions will not appear in the review screen. Question 37. You have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription. You need to identify resumes that are stored in the subscription by using a built-in Trainable classifier. Solution. you create an auto-labeling policy for a retention label. Does this meet the goal? The correct answer is B, no. Question 38. You have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription. You need to identify resumes that are stored in the subscription by using a built-in trainable classifier. Solution. You create an auto-labeling policy for a sensitivity label. Does this meet the goal? The correct answer is A, yes. Question 39. You have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription. You need to identify resumes that are stored in the subscription by using a built-in trainable classifier. Solution. You create a data loss prevention policy. Does this meet the goal? The correct answer is B, no. Question 40. You are configuring a file policy in Microsoft Cloud App Security. You need to configure the policy to apply to all files. Alerts must be sent to every file owner who is affected by the policy. The policy must scan for credit card numbers and alerts must be sent to the Microsoft Teams site of the affected department. Solution. You use the data classification service inspection method and send alerts to Microsoft Power Automate. Does this meet the goal? The correct answer is A, yes. Answer is yes. The only option is to send an email or send the alert to Power Automate. If using Power Automate, you can then create a custom alert automation to notify users via Teams.